Hello and welcome back to The Deevine. I'm your host Dee, and for those who don't know who I am, please make sure you go back and listen to episode 1. Today I'm with my producers, Andrew.
Hello.
And Court.
Hi.
And also joining me, my lovely Asti Maree, who is also a host of Intimate with Asti.
Hello.
Okay, so Asti, why don't you tell my audience a little bit about yourself? Like, we've been friends for almost over a year now. Mm-hmm. We'll tell them how we got to become friends, but yeah, give us a little bit of an intro on you and what you do and how amazing you are, because I know, but my listeners don't know.
Mm-hmm. So I'm Asti, and I'm a female sexual empowerment coach, and I support women in the realms of sex, love, dating, relationships, and also own my own range of sex toys, which is how we met.
Yeah. Yeah, that was spicy. Well, we actually met through our mutual friend, and I think this time I was still living in the eastern suburbs for the first time, and I wanted to build like a community of like-minded, powerful women around me. I was talking to my girlfriend Zilla, and she was like, oh, my friend Asti actually lives in Coogee, and she has these amazing sex toys and stuff, and she's such a boss-ass like businesswoman. You should really link. I was like, okay, cool. So I think I sent you a DM on Instagram. I was like, hey, babe.
Well, I think you asked me, like you reached out and you're like, hey, I'm interested in promoting your products, because Zilla was promoting them and getting commission as an affiliate. Then you reached out and you're like, I think I'm interested in doing this too. And I was like, okay, I'll send you some free goodies, free sex toys. Looked at your address and I was like, we live really close to each other. And then you're just like, let's get dinner.
Yeah.
I've been besties ever since.
I know. I asked you out on a date. So we had a little girl date, and then
girl crushing on each other.
Yeah. And I just like even the first time I met you, like we just never had a time where we didn't talk. Like, you know, there's never been like silence between us. We just fucking talk so much shit, and I just love you so much. And I think our next date was we went to Melbourne together.
Yeah. So that first time we hung out, we're like, let's go to Melbourne. Yeah. And I was like, this is one of those really toxic relationships. We're like, next minute you're planning the wedding and you've only known each other a few weeks.
And I was, because we went to Melbourne because it was our mutual friend's birthday. Yeah. So we're like, all right, let's just do it. And like I was saying this to you the other day, how I felt about you when we went to Melbourne is so different to how I felt about you now, because I obviously only met you the second time we went to Melbourne together. So we're still trying to get to know each other and see, like, you know, where our friendship will sort of lead. Yeah. But now, like, you're
where are the boundaries? What am I allowed to say around her?
Now you're one of my closest friends. And the reason why I wanted you on this podcast today is I want to talk about that time we did DMT together.
Yes.
And it was like one of my favorite things about you, Asti, is like every time I talk to you or I say, oh, do you want to do this or do you want to do that? You're always down for it. You're always like, yes, girl, I'm doing this. Yes, girl, I'm doing that. And I think I was telling you about why I wanted to do DMT, and you're like, oh my God, can I do it with you? I was like, fuck yeah, you can. Yeah. And we went on this fucking magical journey together, and it was just a magic carpet ride.
And I love that you asked me, because it's something that I'd been wanting to do for a while. I actually a few years ago brought some off someone, and it just sat in my apartment for like a year because no one wanted to do it with me. And it's scary. I was like, I'm not doing this by myself. And so that just never happened. I had to meet you and we got to do it together.
So for those that don't know what DMT is, I think I need to explain first. We are both not doctors, and we're not encouraging anyone to do DMT or any sort of drugs without obviously doing your own research, talking to heaps of people, and making sure like you're in the right headspace to do it. Because I've been thinking about doing DMT for a while as well, and I've found out about it, but like I never actually wanted to take the plunge and do it because it's obviously a really scary thing. Like, it's not something you should do without caution. So for those that don't know what DMT is, I just obviously Wikipedia'd this, but it's like the one we did was called 5-MeO DMT, and it's secreted from this toad found in the Sonoran Desert. And it contains this chemical where like these toads excrete it, and it's a thing to like protect it from like the elements, because like these toads are so endangered. The indigenous people of the Sonoran Desert use this like 5-MeO DMT as a way to sort of heal from like trauma and like go through like these journeys and experiences and stuff like that. So the DMT itself, if you don't get it from the right source where you go and ask respectfully if you can like, you know, have some of this like venom to like practice it or whatever, it's actually like really not ethical, because like these toads are now like really endangered. So I found out about this DMT experience through a guy that I met on Tinder, which that's a story for another day. That sex story is fucking wild, by the way.
Save that for next week.
Yeah, I'll save that for next week. But I found out about this through him, and I remember talking to the lady that facilitates this thing, and she was asking me all these questions. She's like, why do you want to do it? Like, what's your purpose? What's your intention? And I was like, well, I always wanted to try ayahuasca, and I'm the type of person that likes to try different things, right? So, and she was like, this is not like ayahuasca. It's like that, but it's not really, and you have to be like in the right mind space.
So she said it's like similar to ayahuasca, but it's more a potent version of it, right?
Yeah.
And ayahuasca is like DMT spread out over hours. It's just like a big like 5-minute hit.
Yeah, but it feels like fucking 10 hours or something, right? So
10 million light years.
Yeah. So I found out about her like a year ago, and I was like, during this time I was in like back in corporate marketing, and she was like, yeah, if you do this, you need to take a week off, because like the things you experience afterwards, you really need to be in the right mind space and all that stuff. And I was like, okay, well, this sounds really intense, and I'm focusing on my career and all that, so I'm not ready for it. But then like she's always like sends out emails like every couple of months. She's like, hey, I'm back. Like, do you want to do it? Do you want to do it? And it never felt like the right time. And it only felt right this year. I went through, I don't know what happened, but I just got sick of working in corporate, and I quit my job, and I was feeling a bit lost. And then I was like, I just need direction, you know. After all the shit I went through with MTV, I thought marketing was like, my career was where I needed that direction, but it wasn't. And I saw her email pop up, and I was like, sweet, let's go do that. Like, I'm not working right now. I can afford to take a week off, like, and do this amazing experience. And I was talking to you about it because we were just catching up over coffee, and you were like, oh, what are you doing next week, babe? And I was like, well, I'm gonna go do DMT. And you're like,
can I come?
Yeah.
Sign me up.
Yeah. And you were like, babe, like, what the fuck? You like, I was just asking how your week is, and you're going to go do DMT. I remember you were just thinking it was just so crazy that I was just penciled this DMT trip in.
I love that that's our lives now, though. Like midday, midweek, we're out tripping at the beach.
And it's fantastic. And I felt called to talk to you about it because I didn't want to do it by myself. I was really scared. Like, I never met this person who was emailing me.
Yeah.
And I wanted someone to like legit like hold space for me, because it is such a fucking intense experience. So the reason why I wanted to do it was, firstly, I wanted to discover, like, you know, like find questions and answers to what am I supposed to do, like blah, blah, blah. But like, you know, I feel like my ego plays such a big role in my life when it comes to like work. Like, I put so much like of who I am as a person through work, because that's all I've ever done ever since I was 14. I love working, I love hustling, I love making money, but I wasn't working, and I was like confused, like, who am I? Like, am I this reality TV person? And am I this marketing guru? Am I this author? Am I this podcast host? Who am I? So that's why I wanted to do it. But why did you feel like a need to do DMT?
So like I said, it's something that I've been wanting to do for a long time. I feel like I just hadn't found the right time or the right people to do it with, where I felt safe, because obviously that's really important. And then with the work that I do a lot of body work, a lot of breath work, a lot of meditation. Like, I'm so into that spiritual realm already, but I just wanted to, I guess, try something new and see where this could take me. And I've been doing a lot of breath work up until this point, processing grief around my brother and losing my brother at the beginning of last year. And so that was probably my main intention, was to connect to my brother and to process some of the grief and some of the pain that I was still holding on to, that I hadn't allowed myself to feel yet. Yeah.
So Asti and I picked Asti up actually, and it was like a Tuesday afternoon. No, not even Tuesday afternoon, it was Tuesday morning. And this place we were supposed to do it was like an hour and a half away in the Central Coast. we were like, okay, amazing. We're going to go on this amazing like road trip. We drove for an hour and a half. And then the directions that this person gave us.
Even getting there was wild. Like that was a trip in itself.
I know. It was like, she's like, oh, you can't put it in Google, but you got to follow these directions that she typed up for us. And it's like, take this left turn at this fucking tree and then drive for 500 meters and then down this fucking.
And we're off-roading, getting stuck in the mud, slipping and sliding everywhere.
And I was like, oh my God, we're going to get killed. We're going to get murdered. And I remember saying to you, and then like our phones had no reception because it was in the middle of nowhere. And I was like, oh my God, Asti, I'm so glad you're with me because if I'm going to die, at least I'm dying with you. It was so scary. Like my phone had no reception. I didn't know where we were going. We rocked up and we got out and it was actually so beautiful. Hey, like the place was like full of trees and it was a bit secluded. What, you didn't think it was beautiful?
You thought it was beautiful. I was like, this is Hicksville. There was like some sort of like yurt in the backyard. I think there were people living there. It looked like they were just like mad hoarders. There was shit everywhere. So you're going, this is beautiful. And I'm like, what the fuck?
Well, no, the actual temple itself that we did.
Once we got in, it was really beautiful. Yeah.
So we got to this place, right? Asti thinks it was like Hicksville. I was like, oh, this is amazing, magical place. And then like the host rocks up and then like she's exactly how I pictured she would be, you know, like this sort of like sort of gypsy traveler looking type person.
What was her story? She's like, I just landed from Hawaii. I fly
Bali.
somewhere else tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like she's there for one day.
Yeah. And she was literally there for one day and she was like, oh, you two are like the only person I have today. I was like, how did we score this? Because she usually does it in groups and we just like booked a slot where it's just us two, which is what I want anyways. I don't want to trip with other people around me. We go in this friggin' like little temple thing and then she's setting out all her crystals and then she's saging, she's meditating, she's asking us questions. She's like, okay, so why do you girls want to do it? And I was like, well, I want to do it because I want to kill my ego and find out where I'm supposed to be in life. And she asked you, Asti, and what did you say again?
I think I said I want to connect with my brother and process I want to feel into the pain that I'm not allowing myself to feel.
Yeah.
Because I felt so blocked and what I'd realized is that a lot of the pain that I was holding on to and holding on to that, I was also numbing myself off from feeling joy and pleasure. And I realized that if you try and like numb some of the uncomfortable emotions, you actually end up numbing everything, which is, it's actually more uncomfortable to feel numb than what it is to experience pain. So there's some sort of like pleasure in releasing those painful emotions.
Well, can I just ask, like, why did you feel like so blocked off from experiencing like grief or allowing yourself to experience grief? Was it just because it was a really hard time for you and you just didn't want to think or feel?
Well, to be honest, I don't think I had that much trouble processing it, but I feel like there was still more that I wasn't feeling into. There's so much that goes into it. Like when you're grieving, I feel like it doesn't matter what you're doing, you feel like you're not doing the right thing. Like if I was having an off day and I was crying and I was upset, I'd have people around me going, it's okay. Like, oh no, are you okay? It's all right. Like cheer up kind of things. And I was like, now I feel like I'm judged for feeling my emotions. But then when days where I was actually having a good day and felt really happy, friends and people around will be like, you know, it's okay. Like you're allowed to cry. You're allowed to feel. So it's like, it didn't matter if I was feeling my emotions or not. I felt like no matter what I was doing, I was still being judged for it. And I had done a lot of breath work and had processed quite a lot of it. And especially with the work that I do, I feel like a lot of my training had supported me in that. But then I got to a point where I just hadn't like cried in so long and I felt like I just wasn't feeling into some of the deep emotions that I was carrying. Yeah. And I think life just gets in the way. You get busy, you're working, you're doing this and doing that. And when you get really busy and forget to take a moment to step back and connect to yourself, you just carry that emotion with you and it affects you in so many ways that you're not even conscious of.
And the thing was like, it was still quite like fresh, you know, like it was still quite raw. So obviously like, and I don't feel like you ever stop grieving. Like, I just think like, you know, if that was like my position, if I lost a sibling, like, I don't think I would ever like truly get over it. Like there's tools to sort of help it get better, but you never really get over it, do you?
Yeah. Which I've learned, grief isn't something that you just process and it's like, okay, I'm fine now. It's actually something that if you've lost someone that close to you, you're going to grieve for the rest of your life. And I've heard people word it in the way that the grief that you're feeling is just the love that you're unable to give. So grief and love, it's actually the same emotion, really. Yeah.
It's really beautiful.
Yeah. And now I find beauty in that pain because, like I said, for so long I was kind of numbing myself and not feeling. And then when I did do DMT, or I'd have done breath work in the past where I'm like crying, like this feels so amazing because even though I'm feeling something so painful right now, this is what it means to be alive, right? To feel all of those human emotions. Yeah.
Yeah, fuck. I'm getting teary. Anyway.
And when you feel all that shit, like this is so fucking hard, it's so painful, I don't want to be here, but in that you like feel into all the shit that your body and your psyche is actually like ready to process, and you cry and you let it out, underneath that is all the good, like all of the pleasure, all of the joy, everything that you do want to be experiencing. And I see this in everyone's lives day to day where they're like, I mean, as women especially, we get taught you don't want to be too crazy, you don't want to be too emotional. So then you try and suppress all of those uncomfortable emotions, sadness, anger, and then try and feel into all the good emotions. And it's quite toxic, like positive vibes only. But either you suppress everything or you feel everything. You can't pick and choose what you're going to feel.
I think the beauty of being human and having emotions is, you know, yeah, the great emotions are fantastic, but you need to have those other hard emotions for you to really appreciate, like joy, euphoria, happiness. Like if you don't experience pain, grief and sadness, like those happy emotions aren't really that special, are they?
There's nothing to compare them to, no polarity.
You need like the polarities of like feeling everything, like, you know, feeling your joy, happiness and euphoria, but also grief, sadness, depression, like that's the beauty of being human.
Yeah. And I have noticed like the more you can feel into like the uncomfortable emotions, the more you can feel that way. But as I said, like the more you cut either off, you just become numb.
Yeah.
And the way I view it as well is that it's all about pleasure. It's all about feeling good. So either you're in emotions that feel good and they're high vibe, or your body's going, okay, we want to be feeling good, right? That's our natural state of being. That's how we should be experiencing life. So what is it that I'm holding on to? What is it that I'm not processing that needs to be processed so that I can come back to feeling good? So it's all positive at the end of the day.
Yeah. Let's go back to our amazing host that was in this temple with us, and she had all her little crystals and like her sage, and she was like saging us, and then we did a meditation together, and then she was like, and I remember she looked at us, she was like, right, who wants to go first? And I was so scared. I was like, I don't want to go first.
It felt like it was just like 0 to 100. Like, all right, we're going to do it now. I'm like, really? Are we doing it now?
I know. She didn't even warm us up, but she was just like, who wants to go first? And I was like, not me. And Asti was like, I'll go first. I was like, okay, and I'm just going to like sit here and watch you.
Which I think worked well, because in my mind I was like, I would rather go first, because I thought if I watched you and it looked scary, then I'd be more resistant to doing it. So I was like, I'll just do it.
Which I'm glad, because she comes over to you. And she has this little pipe, and there's powder in the pipe.
This is one of those few moments in my life where I've sat there and been like, what the fuck am I doing? In this crazy little weird temple out in Hicksville, in the middle of nowhere, with this woman that we've just met holding a pipe up to my face.
And can I just jump in, Asti? I mean, what did you expect you were going to get when you went to do the DMT? Did you think it was going to be like the Sheraton or something?
That's probably the bougie ass was thinking that.
Yeah.
She's probably thought we're going to be like a 5-star suite. And
Actually,
it's like,
no, I did. I was like, we're going to like a resort centre. I was like, there's going to be a nice pool. There'll be like nice bed. We were actually laughing because we were like, maybe we'll stay the night. We'll like make the most of it. And then afterwards we looked at each other and we're like, nah. I think she was offering us food, and I was like, I don't want to even
good,
eat
babes. I don't want to be here.
So actually, yes, I was expecting 5-star treatment for this.
Sounds like you didn't get that. Did you just want to maybe like, I don't know, close your eyes and just take us into the scene? Like, you know, for the listeners and us, you know, this is so, you know, crazy for us to just, what was it like?
When we drove in, we couldn't really figure out where we were meant to be going. So we actually drove past the place at first into like a dead end, and you were so fine, like, this is amazing. And I just remember being like, I'm so scared, I feel like someone's gonna come out.
You hit it well. I didn't realize you were scared. I thought like you were just, whatever, babes. I was like, okay.
That felt like there was stuff everywhere. Like these people, I felt like we were in like a tip somewhere. There was just like rubbish everywhere. I was like, someone's going to come out of here and begin chasing us. And like you said, like the little temple or whatever it was actually really beautiful, but it was just so like strange. where it was positioned, like with all the other craziness that was going on. And then inside was like empty, just like hardwood floors, this huge space, and then little me and you and our sleeping bags in the middle.
And then up on the roof was like this fucking painted like starry sky or some shit, and it was like dusty, and I was like, okay. This ain't the Sheraton babes, but it'll do.
Actually, just before, I think she like did the meditation and everything, and then she's like, I'm just going to run to the bathroom, then I'll come back and we'll get started. And me and you get out our phones and we're like filming everything.
No, okay, the bathroom fucked me up because it was like, she was like, oh, when you go to the bathroom, don't flush, you got to put sawdust over. I was like, excuse me, what? And then I was like, I went to the bathroom and I was like, wait, you can't flush? I got to put sawdust in it? I was like, what the fuck is this?
But there was another toilet 2 doors down that was like a regular toilet.
Oh, so why did she make us piss in the sawdust?
I walked past that and I was like, I'm going to the normal one.
What the fuck? I didn't know about the normal one. I pissed in the sawdust one.
This whole place was just so strange.
Anyway,
so this host, she'd just flown in and she'd found this place through someone to host this meditation / trip at. But it was actually another woman there who owned the property and who leased out the space for this purpose.
I love you so much.
It looked like she hadn't left. Like, it looked like she'd spent the last 30 years there and had never been into the city.
By the way, you're a fucking real one though, because I love you so much. You must have thought like, what is Dee doing? Like, she's taking me on this fucking journey. I'm about to get murdered, and I just like, I'm so glad you were there.
I'm like, take me.
I'm so glad you were there with me, because if I was there by myself, I'll fucking freak out.
Oh yeah. You have to be with someone you feel safe with.
Yeah. The host comes over to Asti. Okay, firstly, I was like, where the fuck is this DMT? Expecting it to be in the like this amazing like little, I don't know, because it's so sacred. I was hoping like she was going to whip it out in like this sacred like box or something. And then it was just like this tiny little
baggie.
Your royal baggie. Like a gold encrusted baggie. No. And I was sitting there watching her with all her fucking crystals and a little like feather and her sage. I was like, where's this DMT? And she's like, it's right here. And it was this little vial with like white powder in it. I was like, oh, that's really like anticlimactic, because I was expecting it to be this whatever. I don't know.
It was going to look like.
Were you expecting a frog?
Well, I don't know. I was expecting it to be like
here's the frog. Now let's
lick it. Yeah, now lick the frog.
Can I ask how much it cost?
It was $500 each. Yeah. Which was like, okay, it's really expensive, but, you know, for the journey and stuff, that if you can afford it.
I don't think it's expensive for like just the two of us with one facilitator, with one host.
Yeah, but you can get DMT like from the streets for like.
Yeah, I know, but I like for the experience.
Yeah,
like having
100%.
someone host you.
Yeah.
We were there for quite a few hours.
Yeah. It's worth
it. And there's DMT from the streets, which is like synthetic, man-made.
Yeah. This is like proper DMT.
This is DMT.
So this
then
is
I'm like,
I
don't know what the difference is. I don't know if your experience would be different. From what I've heard, it's not so much.
Well, I just
is this one healthier? Sugar-free, gluten-free.
I just think like if I wanted to do it, I wanted to do it right. And like I did my research on it, and it said like, you know, it's actually really fucked up how DMT is being used now in Western society and all that stuff. So I wanted to pay my respect. I wanted to be respectful to the indigenous people of the Sonoran Desert.
And what she actually said, which I don't think you mentioned before, this might be incorrect, but I think she said it's a more ethical way of doing it when the person that retrieves it from the frog, they only take it from its back. Whereas other people will take it from like its back and behind the ears. Like it's located in 2 places. And if they take all of it, they're being greedy. Obviously they want to make more money, but the frog dies.
Yeah.
So this guy apparently only takes it from
the back.
one.
Yeah. Which was like, I feel like, if we were going to do it, we did it the right way. And I wanted to be like, I wanted to go in it and be ethical and just do it like the way it's supposed to be done, and not just like, you know, from the streets, like smoking. Anyway.
Not like at a party, we're just like, woo, but like actually setting an intention.
To do it. Yeah. That's why I say like, when like friends ask me, oh, they think I'm fucking crazy for doing all these drugs. But no, if you have the right intention behind it and you do it in the right way and you're mentally prepared, like, because I've talked to my other girlfriends about DMT and they're like, oh, I want to do it. I was like, I don't think you're ready yet, hun, you know, because like, why is it that you want to do it? Do you want to do it just to escape, or do you want to do it because you have some emotions that you need to access, or do you want to do it because like it sounds like a mad time?
Yeah.
And that's why I'm very careful about who I share this experience with, because I shared it with my other girlfriend. She's like, yeah, I want to do it. But I was like, why? Like, why? So anyways,
I think it's good to have like the base or the foundation of having done work on yourself first, because as she said, it can bring up stuff in the weeks to come. And if you don't know how to hold yourself through that, it's
hard.
Good,
yeah. So she holds this, so she gets out this vial of like white powder. She puts it in this like little crystal pipe, and then she goes over to Asti. She's like, the way you smoke it is like you inhale it and like you hold it, or whatever the fuck she was saying. I don't know.
She counts you down, doesn't she? Like,
yeah.
Into it.
So she walks over to Asti, and then you go, tell them like what happened.
And then I was freaking the fuck out.
But how did you like inhale it though? Because like
you really struggled, didn't you?
Yeah, I struggled because I hit it like a fucking like bomb.
Yeah.
And I was like holding it and I was trying to blow.
She said to like breathe it in like slow and steady. So I just breathed like how she said. I think it was like that slow, and you must have gone.
Well, it tasted like ass.
Yeah.
Like it was disgusting. And when I hit it, I was like, oh, this is gross. So I was trying to blow rings and she's like, don't
you know
blow.
what it smells like? It smells like new shoes. I got some of my Louboutins resold the other day. They were sitting in my cupboard, and then I opened the door and I was like, it smells like DMT in here. I was like, oh my God, it's a new shoe smell.
Yeah. So you hit the fucking pipe.
Okay. So the first time, spoiler alert, we did it twice, but the first time I did it, I felt so resistant. Obviously, it's like you don't know what's going to happen. So all of that fear comes up to the surface. And I remember doing exactly what she said, like taking it in really slowly and then laying back down afterwards and closing my eyes. And I think in my mind, I expected it to be a little bit like mushrooms. I was kind of expecting that sensation and those kind of colors and patterns. It was completely different to that. I was like, this is insane. Like I haven't experienced anything like this before. But the first time I felt like I laid down and straight away it was like this inner battle of like a large part of me going, yes, we can do this, like surrender, it's safe, like there's something awaiting for you on the other side, like trying to trust the experience and the process. And then the other part of me was like, just full resistance, like, no, we can't do this isn't safe, like, don't let go, stay here. So it was like this huge inner battle. And I remember then trying to connect to the part of me that was the resistance and seeing it as like this separate identity. And I guess it helps from a lot of the work that I do in my coaching, working with these inner pieces and recognizing their purpose. But I could recognize that the resistance was coming up because it was trying to protect me, right? So you're like, is this safe? Is something bad going to happen? Is there danger on the other side? So this bit was coming up to protect me. And I remember just like having this conversation with it and bringing up this inner dialogue of, it's okay, I'm safe, everything's going to be fine. Thank you for trying to protect me, but I've got this. And then I remember it moved from a protective piece that was blocking me from going in to a protective piece that was supporting me, like on my side and wanting the same thing, but like in a way that's supporting my desire. And it was like, it felt like it was my inner masculine, which was interesting to me because a lot of the time I meditate or do breath work, it's all very feminine energies. So it was like my inner masculine then behind me, supporting me to drop in and go a little bit deeper. At the same time as it being my inner masculine, it also felt like it was my brother sitting there. And I just remember, like, it felt like he was actually just sitting there beside me, supporting me to go in and to go even deeper. And it was beautiful, that connection, because my brother committed suicide. So when he left us, he was in a really shitty place and he wasn't his true self. But when I connected to him there, it was like he was the man that he was supposed to be, you know? It's like I connected to the true him and to his soul.
I got goosebumps.
Yeah.
So when you were going through this experience, I remember I was like watching you so carefully because I was like, obviously I didn't know who this chick is. And I was getting ready. I was like, if she's going to do something weird, like I'm ready to throw hands at this bitch. So I was just making sure like you were safe. Obviously she's such a lovely lady, but I was just making sure I was watching you so carefully, like the way you were inhaling it. And at any point if you were freaking out, I'll fucking go over there and like throw hands or some shit, like jump in. But when when you hit it and like I saw you just lie down straight away when you inhaled it. And then she was like doing like the singing song around you and she was like getting her sage and she was like shaking these like little maracas. Was that what they call? Whatever the fuck. Maracas. And she was shaking these maracas, and then she was doing the thing. And then I saw you just lie down, like, so straight. But then you were, like, you breathe, and, like, I saw your chest rise. And then, like, I don't know, like, I wasn't tripping yet, but I saw this sort of, like, light, like, over your body. Like, it was, like, sort of, like, it was maybe your energy trying to leave your body, but it was still attached to your body. Like, I just saw these rays of lights out of your body. Like, if you were to imagine it in a cartoon or, like, a movie, it would be you lying and there was just rays of light trying to, like, sort of leave your body and go, like, up somewhere. And, like, your chest was up like that, and you were, like, breathing, and then, like, the whole thing probably lasted 5 minutes, but for you, it probably felt longer. And then your chest sort of collapsed, and then you started crying.
I started crying, yeah.
And then you put, like, the blanket over you, and, like, you were crying. I was really worried. I was like, is she okay? But obviously you were fine. Like, I just wanted you to experience it. And I was like, you were crying and all that stuff. And then you came to and you sat up, and you're like, that was amazing. And, like, and then she turned to me and she was like, now it's your turn. I was like, what the fuck? Yeah, you came to and you were sitting down, and, like, I don't think you said anything. You were just like, that was really intense. And then, like, she looked at me and you looked at me, and then she was like, yeah, it's your turn, Dee. I was like, okay. And then you're like, you just looked at me and you were just nodding. You were so supportive. I was like, all right, well, if Asti did it.
Like, couldn't speak, just nodding.
And I was like, okay, cool. So she comes over with this fucking pipe again, and she's like, oh, breathe in, hold it, and, like, whatever. And I think I was just so nervous. I just forgot what she said. So when I hit it, I was like, and then it was tasted so foul. So I was like, trying to blow a ring like that. And then she was like, no, that's
You're trying to blow a ring?
Yeah. And she's like, no, that's the medicine. I was like, oh, shit. Trying to suck the ring back in. So then she was like, hit it again. So I hit it again. And, like, I think, like, because, like, I didn't hit the whole medicine, I was sitting up and I could feel it hit me. And I was looking at her, and then the room sort of tilted. And then, like, I refused to lie down. Like, I refused. And I was looking at her, and she was like, it'll probably be better if you close your eyes and lie down. And I was like, oh, yeah.
Because it's such an inner experience.
So I was like, oh, yeah, cool. So I closed my eyes and I lied down, and I fucking, like, hated it. Hey, like, that experience for me was so, it was a lot, because my thing was I wanted to get rid of my ego, and I felt like when I was under, I could hear her singing and doing her fucking dance and shit like that. But my brain felt like it was split into two. This side, my right side, was my ego, and my left side was my feminine side. So I felt this voice on the right side asking myself, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? And this, no, apologies. It was the other way around. It was the voice on the left that was asking, who am I? The feminine side asking, who am I? Who am I? And the voice on the right was just saying, just be, like this loud masculine voice saying, just be. And then the right side was like, but who am I? Like, what's just be? And the right side was saying, just be. And I literally felt like my brain was split in two and my body was split in two, because the right side of my face was like, I don't know, it was like melting. It felt like it was melting, but the left side of my face was just like thinking, and I felt like myself frowning. It was a really weird experience, and I felt really scared. And I heard this, like I felt myself go, like, get out of this. Like, what are you doing? Get out of this. And it was just that, just get out of this. And I wanted it to be over. Like, I didn't want it to trip anymore. I was like, I fucking want this to be over. I'm done. I sat up and I came to, and the host was like, how was that, Dee? And I was like, I didn't like it. And she was like, you didn't? And I was like, no, because, like, it was really confronting. And she's like, that's perfectly normal.
Yeah.
And she was like, usually, like, people would do it 2 times, because I gave you a dose that's only half for the first time. And she's like, people will usually do 2 doses. Would you like to go again? I was like, I don't know. And I looked over at you, Asti. I was like, if you want to do it again, babe, you go do it. But I don't know. Like, I need to process. So she was like, okay, let's do it again, Asti. So she comes over to you with the pipe again.
So I thought it was interesting, because she asked me, she's like, after the first time, she's like, how was that for you? And I went into that whole story of everything that I just explained, and she didn't say anything. She just looked at me and went, do you want to do it again? So it's like she knew that I didn't fully, like, go into it because of the resistance.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I was like, well, I feel like in that first time that I did it, I just done all of the work to move the resistance. So if I'm going to do it again, the resistance is already moved and I'm going to go into what's beyond that. So I knew I didn't want to come that far and like just shift the resistance and not actually experience it. So even though I was still scared, I said yes and did it again. And this time was like, now I understand why she was just like, do you want to do it again? Because after the second time, I had no words. Like I couldn't even describe what happened. And I feel like it took me a couple of weeks to even be able to put it into words. So this time there was nothing in the room happening with me. I wasn't even aware of you in the room with me. I wasn't aware of her in the room. I had no the concept of like what was happening around me physically. So all of that just like melted away. And the way that I can like best describe it was a complete ego death. Like my ego completely died in that moment, and I got to experience what it feels like to be fully tapped into your soul self. And even like what I saw was like everything disappeared. So you literally go into a different reality or different dimension, and it sounds really crazy, but I feel like I saw colors that I've never seen before. Like it was like, you can't even like describe it to the human mind, right? It's insane. And so I went into that, and then I just remember this deep, like the deepest surrender that I've ever experienced. And it felt like the feeling was just like divine love, like the purest, most divine sensation and feeling of love. And then I got this like sensation of like, I'm home. And it was like, oh my gosh. I was like, this is where I came from, and this is where I'm going back to. Like this is it. It's like a behind the scenes of the Matrix type of thing. And I feel like it's almost like the veil between life and death was removed. And so in that, I felt like I was so much closer to my brother. Yeah, like it's so hard to describe. And what it's like made me realize, I heard someone talking about this, I think it was on a reel. Like when we think about death, it's really hard to even conceptualize where it is that we go after that. And every death is like a rebirth, right? So if you think of like a baby in the womb, for them when they're going to be born, that's the death of that reality for them. And if you explain to a baby that the afterlife of that life is actually so much closer than what you think, as that baby in the womb, you'd be like, you're crazy, like this is ridiculous, what are you talking about? But actually it is, right? It's like the where you go to after that death, that next world, is actually like so close in comparison to being inside the womb. So yeah, now I feel like that with my brother and with like I feel like my fear of death is completely gone, and I feel like my brother's always here. It's just like in a different dimension that we can't always tap into. You were gone, you're like boom, gone, dropped out, soul, like ego dead, full soul. Oh my God, this is where I came from. It's like flash, like you're flying through space into a different dimension, and then you just go poof, and you're back.
It felt like 2 hours, like when I was under, like the second time, and the first time I went under, it felt like it was an hour, but it was reality. It was only 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But I remember looking at you the second time, and you were like laughing and giggling, and like you weren't like you were still crying, and you were experiencing all these beautiful emotions, and yeah, you were like laughing and giggling. I was like, fuck me, man, like she's having the time of her life. And
like the first 5 minutes where it's like you're in a different dimension, I think you just literally lay there.
Yeah.
Like, but then when you start to come back, it's kind of like these two worlds are kind of overlapping.
Yeah.
So you're here, but it's still in a... That's when you're like laughing and like making more sound. But I think when you're in it, you're just like...
Yeah. So yeah, I was looking at you, and you were just giggling, having the time of your life. And I was like, fuck, am I going to do it again? Like, why is she having so much fun? And I fucking hated it. And so the host, like after you came to the second time, she turns around to me. She's like, do you want to do it again? And I was like, fuck it, yeah, I'm here. I might as well just do it again and see what happens. And then she was like, this time, like when you hit it, like just breathe in, don't try to blow rings. I was like, yeah, okay. So she comes over, gives me the pipe, and I took it in and I held it in. She's like, yep, hold it. And it tasted so foul. I was like, I don't want to hold it. She's like, hold it. I was like, okay. And then I swallowed, and immediately I dropped. Like I went under straight away. I didn't resist anything, and I went under. And it was the same thing again in my head when I was under. I was like, the right side... was like, no, the left side was like, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? And the right side was just be, just be. And then I was pondering the word just be. And then when what I realized was me asking, like, whatever, God, the universe, or whoever it is, who am I, is my ego. Yeah. Me asking, who am I, what am I, like, what it is my ego. And what I'm like, it's trying to tell me is just be. Yeah. Like, you are no one. You're not a marketing guru. You're nothing. You're just you. Just be. That's you in the essence. You trying to find out who you are is your ego trying to attach like some sort of identity to yourself and finding worth in that person.
And as soon as you stop asking who am I, that's when you figure out who you are. Which is like, then it shows you that you're just connected to everything and everyone.
Exactly. So when I accepted that I should just be, that's when I felt like this. I went through like, because the whole time I was just lying still. I didn't do anything, but I felt my brain just go fucking crazy, right? I was like traveling through space as well. So when I accepted that word just be, and then it sunk into my body, I felt it in my core, like my soul, suddenly all I saw was just white. Like, it wasn't even like the color white, it was like an absence of color. And I heard this ringing in my ear. It was like the dee, and I was just in this space, this absence of color space, and I was in there. And I, like, when you talk, it's like an echo. And I was like, and I said to myself, oh my gosh, I'm dead. This is death. This is death for me, because I felt so peaceful. I felt so content, but I was also scared. I was like, oh my God, am I dead? And it was, I realized.
It is a death.
It's that death of the ego. That, and then when I was like, oh, I am dead. And then suddenly when I said that, I saw a burst of like colors over my vision as well. Like, I felt like colors broke through the absence of color, and like all these like vivid like rainbow colors came. And then I was in this garden. I saw lush green grass, so many light reflecting like diamonds around me. And I was barefooted, and I felt the grass underneath my feet. I felt the softness of it. I smelt grass, and I felt like this. I was like, oh my gosh, this is my new life now. And when I said that, suddenly this intense feeling came over my body, Asti, and I kid you not, I legit had the best orgasm of my life, and I didn't even have penetration. I felt this, like, it was this build up in my
body orgasm.
Yeah, it was. I felt this build up in my belly. It was this orgasm, and you know when you come, like when you're like having sex with someone, you come like. The orgasm probably lasts like 5 seconds. It felt like this orgasm was coming, and then it left, and then it came back again. And I felt like, you know, my nipples were hard, I felt like my panties were soaked or something, because I just kept coming and coming and coming. And I was like, it got to a point where it was too much. I was saying like, okay, this is bliss. Like, this is just too much now. And then I heard this voice say, well, this is just like a small part of what you deserve. Yeah. The love that you deserve and the love that surrounds you is like tenfold of this. Yeah. And I remember saying to myself, if this is only like a small percentage of what I deserve, imagine when I like, you know, open my mind up and allow more love into my life. Imagine when I like allow myself to experience bliss to its fullest. I don't think the human body could ever comprehend like the amount of bliss and love like at its full potential, because I felt like that moment
you were like a walking orgasm when that happens.
Yeah. I felt like that moment was only like 10% of what we can really experience. Yeah. So this orgasm kept coming, and I finally like calmed down, and I could see myself like the end of the trip was coming, and then I was just like, I was leaving that garden, and I could see like the garden like fading further away from my vision. I was like, no, I don't want to go yet. I don't want to leave. And this voice said to me, it's not your time. You have to go back. And I said, I don't want to leave.
Do you know what's so interesting? I've watched so many documentaries on people that have had near-death experiences, and they all talk about, because DMT is released when you die, right? Everyone who has a near-death experience, they come back and they're like, no, like they want to die when they're there.
Yeah, because I remember like, I was like, no, I'm not ready yet. And then the voice was like, no, it's not your time, go back. And when I came back and I opened my eyes, and you were sitting up, and like the host was over there, and I felt so sad. I was actually sad, and I didn't speak for a while. She was like, how did you feel? I was like, I just didn't talk. And she was like, you're not ready to come to yet, are you? I was like, no, because I didn't want to be in this reality. I wanted to be back there experiencing that bliss, experiencing that love, experience that like orgasm like forever, but you're not meant to experience that as humans.
Yeah. So wild. Oh my gosh. But I love that you went in like from this ego point of view, and then once the ego dropped, you had that beautiful experience. So it's almost taught you like it's not about what you do or who you are to earn love. You're just worthy of love
in general. Yeah. The polarity of our experiences were just so wild because I felt like we both came to it for different reasons.
Yeah. And I think under it all, we had the same experience though. Like we both recognized what we had to move through, and then on the other side of that found bliss. Yeah.
So how did you, like, how was it for you when, because after that we left and she was like, oh, you guys can stay for soup. I was like, nah, homie, I'm sweet. I want to go home. But I'm not staying for soup in this fucking crazy place. Yeah, we're out of here. But how did you feel like the next day and the couple of days after? Because I really struggled with my reality.
Yeah.
Like afterwards.
I remember the same as you. When I came back, the first thing I remember thinking is, how am I supposed to carry on living my life with this information? Like, how do you integrate that into this reality? And then as weeks went on, I think I just started to view life in a different way. Like, thinking about like living from this soul place that I tapped into, I was like, how am I supposed to carry on doing like the mundane human things and like things that I love, like that a lot of people would shame and say that's not spiritual, like drinking or like going out for our long lunches or buying designer handbags. I was almost like, how am I supposed to enjoy this stuff now when I've experienced like something so much greater? And then I started doing these things from a place where it was more like my soul was leading me through my life. And I just kept having this saying come through to me when I was doing anything to make me feel good. It was like, we're doing this for our human. So it was like I was no longer like a human chasing these soulful experiences and meditating and stuff, but my soul was like making the most of the human experience, knowing that that's the soul experience. So that saying always comes to mind now, like doing this for our human.
Yeah. I know you talked about breath work. I've never done breath work before. Right. So when I, after we left that week, I really struggled with reality. Like I was still feeling like lost, even though I experienced like this amazing thing and the whole point of me doing it was to discover who I am. But I felt like I left it more lost than what I felt coming into it, if that makes sense. Because
I think there's a sense of grief that comes up for yourself, because once you, and this happens with people that move through trauma and stuff in their life, but once you tap into a higher state of pleasure and ecstasy and feeling good, it's almost like you grieve all the time before you, because you're like, this has been available to me this whole time and I haven't given myself permission, or I haven't been able to access it.
For me, it was more like I didn't want to be in this, I know this is going to sound really fucking like fucked up, but I didn't want to be in this world. I wanted to be back in that garden. Like I wanted to be back in that garden. And I didn't understand how I couldn't be back in that garden and I was here in this real world. So I actually reached out to the host like a couple of days after. I was like, hey, because she emailed me. She's like, hey, how are you guys going integrating?
Yeah, she offered support. Yeah.
And I was like, to be honest with you, I'm really fucking struggling. Hey, I had this amazing experience, but I'm really struggling like with my everyday life. I don't really know what I'm supposed to do. And I'm more sad than what I was doing it. And she's like, that's completely normal. You should reach out to this person and do some breath work and it will open up like how you can integrate more. I was like, all right, fuck it. Let's just give it a go. So I met this person and she was facilitating the breath work for me. So we were talking about my experience with DMT and she was like, yeah, like a lot of people come to me afterwards because they're feeling exactly how you're feeling. So breath work is supposed to open up like the pain and the trauma underneath, like, because obviously I still had a lot of trauma and pain underneath and it's going to help you integrate. So when I came out of that breath work session, what I realized was for me to incorporate bliss and feel that garden in everyday life is to really slow down and take my time to do everything. So bliss is around me all the time. So when I'm like waking up, going to the gym, going for my swim, because I'm such a go person, like I'm so busy all the time, but I don't really slow down and be in the moment and be present. And she's like, this week, I want you to go about your day, but feel blissed and everything. So
it's number one priority. Yeah.
Take time, wake up. When you put moisturizer on, feel how it feels on your skin. When you're swimming, feel how the water feels on your body. When you're lifting weights, feel how your muscles are reacting to it. And that's when I did that and I started living my life with a place of more intent and coming like to discover bliss in everything I do, even brushing my hair or getting dressed. That's where I felt like that work that I did with DMT really integrated.
Yeah, you're bringing that garden to life.
I know, in real life.
I love that you mentioned this because this is a huge piece of what I do when I work with my clients is that I feel like we're all just stuck on this hamster wheel where we're constantly hustling and grinding and doing like go to get to a point where we're like, okay, now I've become enough. Now I've done enough. Now I'm worthy of feeling good. Right. But that point never comes because the hamster wheel never ends. That destination
the next thing
keeps going further away and that to-do list keeps growing. And so you never actually get to a point where you feel worthy of treating yourself to pleasure. And what I always teach people is that pleasure isn't a reward once you feel enough or once you've done enough, but it's a tool to remind you that you always were. You always were enough.
Yeah. So all that stuff happened and I really needed to go to Europe. And when I went in Europe and I saw you in Europe as well, I was like, oh, bliss, pleasure every day of my life. And it was fucking great. And
living that pleasure-filled life, babe.
Yeah.
And you did.
Yeah, I fucking did, didn't I? And here we are, just experience more bliss. And like this podcast has given me bliss, you know?
And you know, I will just quickly add on, my grandmother passed away a few months ago, which was really healing for me because it was in a way where I was able to go and say goodbye instead of the sudden death that we had with my brother. But it was interesting for me then to be in that space after experiencing DMT, knowing that it's something that is released when you die, and watching her experience of kind of passing to the other side, and the way she was explaining it was really similar to what we experienced.
I just want to say thank you, Asti, for today and for being really real and opening up, because I know it is a very hard thing to talk about grief. But for those who are listening and want to know more about you and find you, how are they going to find you?
So you can follow my Instagram is Asti, ASTI.MAREE. I've also got my own podcast, which is called Intimate with Asti. And if you want to buy the sex toys that we were talking about earlier, that's pleasuretreasuresbyasti.com.
Maybe I'll drop a link or something and give them like a little discount code, little influencer code. That wraps up this episode of The Deevine, and I just want to say thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you do want to reach out and say hello to me or have any questions, you can email me on hello@thedeevine.com. That's Deevine with a D-E-E. And I'll be back for another episode soon where we're going to talk about embarrassing sex stories, which will be a fun ride.